Always lively and unrehearsed, it's moral side of the news, and we're glad you're alongside. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children. With me, as always, is a distinguished panel. This week, Rabbi Emerita Gaylia Rooks, the Temple, Reverend Sally McClain, Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, Reverend Dr. Kilen Gray, Louisville Presbyterian Theological Seminary, and Father Bill Hammer, St. Margaret Mary and St. William Catholic Churches. Welcome, panel. Our first topic, the weather has heated up, and it seems so has the temperature of tolerance. For example, this week, Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher was punched in the face at a public event. And a few weeks ago, Louisville police say a man pulled a gun and fired it after his young son was pushed from a scooter near Louisville's Big Four Bridge. 6 teenagers and a 9-year-old were sent to the hospital. Louisville's police chief calls what she is seeing as senseless violence. So turning to our panel on moral side of the news, what do you see in all of this?
Well, I definitely think that the hot weather is making things worse. But I think another big factor is the ongoing nature of the COVID pandemic. I think that a lot of people are just trying to pretend that it's not out there anymore, and it's just disrupted our lives so much. And a lot of people are socially isolated or having financial issues because of the tremendous problems with inflation and gas and groceries and supply lines and and all the rest of that. And people just don't have the patience. And also, I think part of it is, so some of it is heat, some of it is the pandemic. I think also our country has become more divided, more divisive, and more intolerant of one another. The free exchange of ideas has, we're just so polarized as a nation. The ordeal of civility just doesn't seem to exist anymore. People don't feel that tremendous need. And of course, I should have mentioned this first, but the number one issue is easy access to guns. Now, violent crime is actually down significantly in Louisville, thank God. But these kinds of, I'm not in any way saying gang shootings, drug-related things are acceptable or by any means okay. But this is so random. I mean, you push the kid off the scooter. I mean, kids do that and they need to be taught. So what is this father teaching? He's teaching you go from 0 to 60 just like that and pull out your gun and shoot, which is why people should not be walking around with guns.
Gaylia, I don't know that you've heard the news today, but I'm reading from my iPhone. Supreme Court strikes down New York gun law, making it easier for Americans to carry handguns.
I saw that. It was very, very disappointing to me.
And very disappointing to the people of New York who are trying to clean up a lot of the violence and the easy access. It's also sort of a scary thing, as you say, when all of a sudden you can just pull out a gun and resolve an issue instead of trying to find a way to resolve an issue verbally, instead of making it such easy access for people who own guns and carry guns.
Definitely that we've seen an uptick in the impatience that people have with one another. I would say that it began even before COVID, that something happened within the last 4 to 5 years, given the acceptance of virulent language and virulent political discourse that was introduced by the Trump campaign and all forward to that people have just been meaner. People are meaner, nastier. We have persons who used to, within history, be the model for people, appropriate discourse and ways of exchanging ideas. We have a Congress right now that won't even talk to each other. I mean, they can't even talk to each other to even pass significant legislation that political positions within Congress are made based on ideology more so than conversation and being able to resolve conflict. our leaders don't do it. We have religious centers where religious leaders can't do it. And so it's, when you have those who are supposed to be modeling the types of moral behavior that from where the moral centers need to be, when those deprecate, it makes it very, very difficult. And it's a very scary time where people feel like it's okay to be mean. It's okay to be disrespectful.
They have
okay.
a role model. I mean,
yes.
someone was saying about, how there's so much more racism now. And I said, I think there always was racism, but people were made to feel ashamed of it. It wasn't something to be proud of. And now I think that, Trump at the top and most of the people who surrounded him or still surround him, they glorify intolerance, hatred, belittling people. I mean, I still have images of him making fun of a disabled person or saying negative things about veterans. And I mean, it just things that used to be shameful. And when they come out of the mouth of the leader, not just of our country, but of the free world, I think that it gives permission, and more than permission, almost encourage. Now there's blatant encouragement. I'm sorry,
Well,
Bill.
it seems to me that also what we're looking at is violence is becoming an acceptable response to things that are happening in lots of ways. And that's across the board. No question that there was encouragement, for a violent response to the election outcome. But also, I mean, there is violent responses from a different perspective when there's a possibility of a Supreme Court decision coming up. I'm not talking about the one on guns, but on human life and where that stands. And already there's been responses where churches have been attacked and desecrated. And there's sort of the history of that in synagogues and things like that throughout history, but that's an acceptable thing now. If you disagree with somebody's understanding of human life, then you burn down their church or you attack in other ways too. So that is happening, and it's across the board. And I think part of the thing is, like you say, there's just an acceptance going on that, like you say, I can pull a gun and settle something. When in fact, you can't pull a gun and settle anything. You pull a gun, you're going to create more problems. And again, I do think that the easy access to guns proliferates that. And while maybe overall violent crimes are going down, my understanding is murders are certainly up. And that, and I believe in the case on the talking about that scooter down at the 4th Street, not 4th Street, at the 2nd Street Bridge. If I'm not mistaken, I think the father who drew the gun was responding to some youth that already pulled their guns.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a case of just the father initiating this violence, but was responding to youth that already pulled guns. And so, it's just like youth have such easy access to guns now. I'm talking about, teenagers, and that's our society. So of course they're going to respond that way because that's the way they've been modeled for as well. It's apparent. I think the parenting is a major issue going on right now too, and role model.
So what happened? Seems like settling disagreements with words used to be the thing. Has it totally gone to fists and guns? Is there a way back from that?
I think there's a frustration, John, of being heard. People think that they're not being heard. I don't know whether you've ever been around very many deaf people, but the voice goes lower. It doesn't go louder. And so somehow we think that if we make ourselves louder, whether it be vocally or with a weapon, that we're going to be heard more. And I think that if we could lower the rhetoric like you do in a conflict situation, if you're a counselor, you lower your voice and you try to de-escalate. And I don't know how often that happens anymore, but I think we've lost that skill. And we need to bring that skill back.
It's like pulling a gun will make you get heard. Well, actually, it doesn't. I mean, that's the thinking, I think. Like you're saying, Sally, that somehow they're not listening to me. So if I pull my gun, they'll listen to me. back off, or if I pull my gun, then they'll let me have what I want. And that's not the way it works. The merit of your words or your position should stand on its own. You don't need a gun to reinforce what you're saying, or any form of violence to reinforce what you're saying.
One of the problems with easy access to guns and young people having guns is that not to let adults off the hook and say that they think through their decisions ahead of time, but a lot of teenagers, and that goes all the way up to 21, and actually a little bit more, their brains are not, they don't have, it has to do literally with physiology and the plasticity of the brain, but also it's like teenage suicide, which is so tragic. But when a teenager does something wrong or something stupid, and they think that that's ruined their lives, and that's it, I'm never gonna get over this. Whereas, in reality, if they make it through, and most of them, thank God, do, but a number of them don't, in a year, that was just a tiny little blip on the screen. In 5 years, it's irrelevant. In 10 years, they probably don't even think about it anymore. Only if they live for 5 years or 10 years. And that immediate sense of urgency and that inability to see the long picture and consequences to actions is just all the more reason. Well, and the recent gun laws that they're debating in Congress do not include raising the age limit, as I understand it, to 21. That's not one of the, universal background checks, which is the most agreed upon position, like, I don't know, 80% or something. Maybe I'm making that number up. Does anyone know what the number is? What percentage of Americans are in favor of universal background checks? I mean, it's
it's well over 80%. Yes.
That's what I thought.
Well over 80%. Yes.
And it doesn't even include that. This baby step. I mean, not that baby steps don't count, but it's just such a tiny step. I think they could go so much further, and they need to go so much further.
One more issue, I think, is that we're surrounded by violence. If a child is playing a video game, you select a weapon and you kill something. I mean, that's a video game. If you turn on
Sally, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I hate that. I never let my own kids do it. But the reality is that all the other countries in the world have these violent video games. All the other kids are watching all these violent movies, and they do not have the gun problems that we have. So I don't think that should be part of the picture.
Well, I do think it's part of the culture. And I think the culture is always a part of the picture. And I think you can't watch hardly anything on television where you don't see extreme violence. And if you don't think that penetrates into the brain of a young person, then I would disagree with you, because I'm going to stick by guns. I mean, I've been watching Yellowstone. Okay.
I'm sorry, you're going to stick with your guns.
I'm going to stick with my guns and I do stick with my guns, but not that I know how to use them. But what I'm saying is that it's, I do think that when you see and you're surrounded and a culture is teaching you, from your leadership all the way down to what you view every day, it does make a difference what penetrates into your brain.
Whether one is defending themselves or using aggression as it relates to violence, I think one of the things to step back as a culture that I think is to recapture the virtue of our interconnectedness with one another. I mean, it's, to use violence as such an individual-based, individual-oriented response to anything in life. Somewhere along the line, we have lost our connection with another human life, that our human life has become devalued in our culture. And when you add the culture of violence, which is pervasive throughout the history of our country and within our culture, violence is just a staple part of what it means to be American. We have to be honest about that the nation was founded on violence, and it's rooted within our culture from our history. But there's also has been this ethic of this interconnection, this we-ness about being Americans, about being human beings, that there's something about that that should be able to put a check on my response to you as my neighbor, my response to you as a fellow human being, that before I use aggression, I have to take a pause and know that when I'm harming you, I'm harming me. We've lost that entire ethic. And I think that's worth doing. It's going to take all of our institutions, all of our, from every sector of the community, we're going to have to reclaim religiously, civically, culturally, in every way, this we are interconnected as human beings. We do not thrive and we will not survive as rugged individuals. It just will not happen. And I think that has to undergird philosophically and in every other way, every effort that we do, that we have to reclaim our human interconnection with one another.
And also challenge and invite our parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles, need to step up. Again, kids cannot, but one of the jokes was, you could reach the top of the bar, you could put your money down, you could get a beer or a bourbon or whatever it was when we were younger kids. But there's no way a young child can get a gun unless they get it from their parents. I'm sure parents aren't handing guns out to their kids. But that's the access point for so many. And so it is important for our parents and grandparents to talk to their children all the time, ongoing ways. That there are different ways to respond. Please don't make this mistake in your life and in other people's lives. And the churches, the congregations, all the religious leaders need to be also providing those opportunities for that kind of ongoing conversation. But we're a long ways away from getting, we don't start, then we'll never get there.
In Judaism, we believe that every life has a spark of the divine in it. And, it says in Genesis that God created us in God's own image. And I think that if we could teach everyone, starting with, children at a very young age, to literally see the divine in every living being, then it would change the way they interact. I mean, how can you threaten, much less take away, someone's life who you believe is your sister or brother created in God's image? And all the great religions, like the top 6 or 7 religions in the world, all have that sense of community that Kilen was referring to, love thy neighbor as thyself, says in Leviticus. I mean, that's what it boils down to. And the Buddhists may say it one way and Catholics may say it another way, and Muslims another way, but it all boils down to, that which is hateful to you, do not do to another. Don't treat others the way you wouldn't want someone to treat you. And if we could make that a core binding principle and really instill that in the hearts of our children and our grandparents, and, wherever we've gone off the track, I don't know how we go about doing that, but I do believe that is one very powerful path toward a better future.
Let's move on to our second topic, tying other cultures and other parts of the world to Louisville. The war in Ukraine has Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher cutting ties with one of its 9 sister cities, Perm, Russia. The mayor says our sister city relationships are about building relationships between people and not governments, he said. To our panel, is this the right move? The mayor says he hopes to resume the sister city relationship down the road. Your thoughts?
I actually think it was a mistake myself, because again, I think you got to keep open the dialogue. I think it's an opportunity for us to also inform people of what we're hearing and seeing through that kind of dialogue. I do understand consequences, and that I don't know how the leadership of Perm is addressing or dissenting from Putin's war. I mean, I don't know. But I can't help but imagine that the students who've been here, exchanged with us in university setting and gone back, they gave in the article that I read, example where there's been a lot of interaction between the governments and stuff, and it seems to me that's the whole point of, again, keeping the dialogue doors open. Now to say, we're not going to send money over to Perm to help with this particular project, we weren't anyway. But I mean, I could see where you could set some limits on it. But at least I'm supportive of ongoing opportunities for dialogue. And in a sense, we've kind of precluded that. Now, individuals may still, obviously, if I never have had the experience, but if I knew a pastor in Perm, I would probably be reaching out to him, or if there was some civic connectivity there. But that's my thinking. You still try to keep the doors open. But I understand some need for a consequence for what is going on in Ukraine.
Well, my understanding was initially when asked to do this,
Right.
The mayor said no, because this is, as you, I think, very aptly called it, Putin's war. And I don't believe that Putin is the kind of person who, it's not a straw on the camel's back. It's not a drop in the ocean that, Louisville's not going to be sister cities with Perm anymore. I mean, I don't think if he cares at all, he'll be glad, right? So it was a very controversial decision to make for the mayor, and he chose not to do it in the beginning, and then decided that he would. I think that it's a statement, and I think that statements do have power. I think that maybe if Perm were trying to speak out against the war against Ukraine or something, that might have made a difference. I think maybe, if every small town and village and city in Ukraine would, gather together people to object to the war, that maybe that would make a difference. And so, given his inability to do anything else, I think that's why the mayor ultimately came down on the side of, we're going to cut it off. And I'm sure that he wants, or whoever the mayor is, would want to rekindle that official connection as soon as the war is over.
Well, I would just support any action that any mayor or governor or even the president, any community, whatever we can do to show the Ukrainians that we have full support of them. And it's unfortunate that sometimes these decisions are put into either or type of ways of framing them, but I will be willing to err. Myself would be willing to err on any decision that I would make that says to the Ukrainians, we are 100% behind you. And if cutting a tie of a city signals that to the Ukrainians, I'm 100% behind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not sure that we have enough information to be totally informed about what's going on and why our mayor made that kind of decision. I'm sure it was a way to hold in context what's going on between the U.S. and Russia at this point.
Mayor Fisher may know that the mayor of Perm has come out very publicly in support of Putin in the war, and urging Russians on and on and on. I would have thought that something like that, though, would have been part of his rationale, for doing it. Again, I don't know it all, by no means. And it is an important statement. I said that at the very, very beginning.
We've got about 3 minutes left. Let's just touch quickly on our last topic. It's a pain at the gas pump these days, with the national average around $5 per gallon. Kentucky Governor Beshear wants to cut gas prices by eliminating the higher price, cleaner burning gasoline in Jefferson County. He says it costs up to 30 cents more per gallon. The EPA said, no way, can't do it. Panel, gas prices are affecting everyone, and the governor says it's sometimes food or gas.
Yeah, it is. It's getting bad. And if the EPA was to approve that, that's no guarantee that the prices are going to continue to go up. I mean, the latest I heard was that the expectation is even $6, that it may go up to that high. So if you cut out 32 cents and it's still going up, it's a moot point. I mean, it's a little help, but there's much more substantive things that needs to take place to give some relief for what we're going through now.
We forget that we have done so well for so long. And then all of a sudden we have something hit us that is unexpected and we're not prepared. So I mean, I know no solution other than the gas is cheaper in Shelby County.
I do appreciate that President Biden, although he didn't do it in very strong terms, although you say people lower their voice when they're really serious, when he said to the people at the gas who own the gas stations, you know, you can make a difference here. Everyone has to make however much of a difference they can, and you can lower the prices and not be making such a profit. I mean, the gas companies, all of them made, since the pandemic began, have been making profits in the 300, 400% category. And I think that we all need to come together as a country and try to help. No one should have to choose between the gas to get to their job, the money they spend on food for their family, the medications that they need. And I mean, we really talk about being a community and, you know, brothers and sisters, children of the same God, helping one another. I mean, if now isn't the time, I don't know what is.
And gas has come down about 10, 15 cents in the last couple of weeks, but it's going to go back up. I mean, they're all saying that. I mean, at least in my part of Louisville.
Don't say that.
I say what has come down. You know, we all see that. You know, it's not at $4.99 right now, but it's going to go back up.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, panel. That will bring to a close this edition of Moral Side of the News. Thank you to Gaylia, Rooks, Sally McClain, Kilen Gray, and Bill Hammer. If you'd like to catch this program again, just jump on YouTube and search for Moral Side of the News. Until next week, thank you, panel.
For the 69th WHAS Crusade for Children, the grand total is $5,133,684.69. All right, that's what I'm talking about, baby.
Thanks for making the 69th annual WHAS Crusade for Children a huge success, raising more than $5.1 million for children with special needs.
Seems like a cliche. People have been saying it about the pandemic. We're all in this together. Well, the crusade is something that we've all been in together for many, many years.
And these amazing machines that saved her life, I just remember seeing WHAS Crusade for Children.
For those of you who contribute to the crusade, just want to personally say thank you. It's helped so many families just like mine. We wouldn't be here without you.
It's not too late. You can still mail your contribution to WHAS Crusade for Children, 520 West Chestnut Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40202. That's 520 West Chestnut Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40202. Go online and donate at WHAScrusade.org and see the many new ways you can help change a child's life. Thanks for watching Moral Side of the News. We'll be back again next week with an all-new conversation.